Happy New Year. Now peg me. One man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in Hex on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call Hex, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto. My name is Broke Boy Crypto. I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok. Welcome to 2026. It is our first show of the new year, January 7th. We had a 2-week hiatus there as the holidays ensued. The last couple of Wednesdays landed on Christmas and New Year's Eve, so we just decided, hey, let's take a little bit of time off. Nothing's happening anyway, but super happy to be back now. Happy to see all of you guys in chat. Shout out to you, Valiant Low Key, the Mr. Max, Wesley Whips, the Rat, DJ Moonboy, of course, Don Swan, Carol Tonder. Welcome into all of you. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Is this the year? Will 2026 be the year, or do we continue to cope and be a couple of broke boys, basically, and just yell into the ether until something finally happens with ether? So yeah, let us know your thoughts. We're going to get to it because it's that never-ending battle. We were talking about it before the show started, of the chartists and the large accounts when it comes to crypto and Bitcoin say, oh, same thing as always. We're going down to 55K or lower in Q4 of this year, blah, 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 all that, when all these macro things are still pointing very, very a high upward, basically. So we'll see. I mean, here's the nice thing. None of us ever were in profit if you held altcoins for the last 4 years. So no action to take anyway, and continue to bag hold. So that is kind of the story. We'll talk about all of that and a lot more. We got the Prove X sacrifice phase ending in 2 days with some action from some interesting wallets with it. And we're going to get to all of it. But Ewok, we've got a couple of weeks hiatus. How are you this fine Wednesday evening in 2026?
I'm doing great. Happy New Year to everyone. And just more of the same. This sacrifice is wrapping up rather quickly. Excited to see, how soon we may get these tokens. I'm sure it's going to take a little while to go through the sacrifice points and all that good stuff. But excited to see how quickly we get that, and then obviously how quickly does this product get released. That'll be interesting to see too. So I think we've got some bullish things to look forward to. I think as you said earlier in the opening there, the macro is starting to set up. There's rumors of stimmy checks. There's lots of things that are happening and good for crypto. Meanwhile, all these, like you said, bigger accounts are doom and gloom in it. So hopefully they're wrong, and we can get this new year started off right, and this first quarter will be just kind of like what we hoped it would be, but could delay into the summer. Who knows when when does the macro really take effect? When does it start to spill over to us? Um, you know, just got to wait and see.
Yeah, maybe it never will. It seems like nothing good ever happens if you are an altcoin holder. Good things happen for everybody else. Bitcoin, not Ethereum really. Everything else though, totally fine. Gold, copper, silver,
Silver.
uh, you know, I don't know, tulips, whatever you are, Pokemon cards, PlayStation 2 games, whatever it may be. But if you hold altcoins, you're fucked. I mean, that's just kind of the story of our lives. So, yeah, let's get into it now. So, taking a look at the uh, greater crypto market. So, Bitcoin right now, hey, we've had a green new year so far. And here's something that's beautiful. I said this to you guys the other day in a text, but I was happy to see 2025 definitively for Bitcoin in a red year. I mean, I think that was a very good thing to have happen, as it was just, such a pump and dump Bitcoin only type of year anyway. It was very encouraging, I think, to see the yearly candle end in red, which is something that has not happened. You and I were talking about this. We can get into this too. I didn't even think of this, but that hasn't happened in the post having Bitcoin year really at all. That's not something that's happened before. So that's another thing that I'm sure some of those big accounts really aren't taking into account, even though it did hit, yes, it made a new all-time high at 126K, but a red year in 2025. Since the turn to 2026, we've seen, gradual moves up. Bitcoin right now just under or just over 91K. It's gotten up to like 93 to 94K almost, I believe. ETH sitting at 3160. It's gotten towards 3,300 here in the last few days. And it's, still looking at like a 0.034, I believe, is roughly the ratio there if you do the math. So, yeah, I mean, really interesting. And we're going to get into the macro stuff. We're going to get into what we could see in 2026. But looking back at 2025, not to totally rehash the shitty year that it was, but from a Bitcoin perspective, it does finish in the red. I mean, it was a red year for Bitcoin. Ethereum, of course, we saw make a new all-time high for about 2 hours once on a Sunday. That was it. And all coins totally destroyed. So what do you make of whatever this is that we're seeing? We've talked for months now about cycles. Is there a cycle? Throw the cycle out. What's a super cycle? Nobody defines what it is they're talking about. If somebody says super cycle or 4-year cycle, even, they're very rarely even defining what they mean. Ben Cohen, you name it, like watch their videos, they do not define what they mean. Even a 4-year cycle. I mean, you can say that. What exactly do you mean by that? And they're not really defining it. So
Yeah.
Lucas, for any of his faults, he does at least define what he means when he says a 4-year cycle. If he says the 4-year cycle low, like in 2022, for example, to 4-year cycle low would be, the 4-year cycle. So that would just mean in like Q4 of this year, maybe even Q1 of 2027, if there was a cycle low, he would consider it. But these things are all malleable. Like, I mean, you can try to jam the triangle shape into the square peg, whatever the fuck I'm trying to say. It just doesn't always work. So we don't know where we are, but what do you think about where we've been, Ewok, in 2025?
Well, when you brought that up to me, the fact that Bitcoin, finished red for the year of 2025, I went to the yearly chart. I looked at it. I saw something interesting, a very interesting pattern here. You got 4 green years followed by 1 red. Then you got 3 green years followed by 1 red. Then you got 2 green years followed by 1 red. Now, do we get 1 green year and followed by red? I'm not sure if this is, when you zoom out on things and you look at the S curve that Richard talks about a lot, is this playing out to that S curve? And it almost looks like it. So could be very interesting now that you've got a lot of conglomerates and a lot of institutional money in where this 4-year cycle thing is getting relatively smaller. You're seeing this whole dynamic of the 4-year shift. And again, I would have never even looked at a 12-month chart had you not brought it up that we finished red. So I just felt that pattern was very interesting where it went 4, 3, 2. Now we're here. Now what happens? It'll be interesting to, see how that plays out. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Let's look at the daily though, and get back to what we normally look at and how we've fallen off of this trend line here. We've tapped it actually, almost tapped it back on the 5th a couple days ago. It hit it and then bounced right back off of it. So does that mean we go lower? I don't know. I mean, we've made a higher low actually, or a little bit of a higher high, and you know, it's really going to be interesting to see if we can break through this area. Does it just keep bouncing around? You know, this whole where was it? Oh, I know what I was looking at. So when you're looking at Ethereum and you look at this ratio that you brought up, the 0.0337 now is where we're at. But this whole setup looks like a bull flag from looking at the ratio itself. Now I don't know if that'll play into anything either, but you know the whole thing here in this last pattern is setting up to be a bull flag. If that's the case, and you measure, you know, from here up to the top, and then you know you can extend it off of this one, you know, that's putting us up around 0.07 at least. So it again, another bullish something that you're seeing on the chart, or at least that I'm seeing a pattern here develop that could set up to be, you know, there's a bull flag here for the past since August essentially. We've been in that pattern, so it's kind of consolidating. We'll see how that breaks out, but something to watch for anyway. As far as the price of Ethereum, you know, it's pumping right along with Bitcoin. We're still under or in between the two averages. You know, both of these are sitting between the 200 and the 50. So again, just kind of bouncing in this little ratio, this range here that we've got. You know, it did get up to back on, it was December, but it was, you know, 3,400. It's pulled back slightly, but we are on an incline here. There's a trend, a small trend, you know, if you look at this and kind of measure out. So that is kind of positive at least. So I'm always going to see the brighter side of things, and I think you know there are good things happening. The setups are coming, so you know that's what I'm seeing at least anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you are kind of a perma bull, which it's long term paid off to be in crypto. I mean, like
Yeah.
obviously, I love the thing, and he didn't create it, but I hear Sami say it all the time. But basically, bears sound smart and bulls make money. You know what I mean? And that's what it
Right.
always is. I mean, like people that are the
Yeah.
bears, you know, they're always like, oh, you know, you don't want to know what I know. I just got off a call, and this is what's going to happen next. I mean, it's like they have some secret that they're holding or something like that. At least people that are not, you know, objective. That I think they just like to do it for attention. But yeah, I mean, if you're an altcoin holder over the last couple of years, like we said, you've had nothing to sell really into. So,
Right.
you know, you're just continuing to wait on this, and nobody knows for sure what's coming. I guess I ask you, like, turn it. So we looked at 2025, but like turning into 2026 now, and you know, you can look at like what's happening with the chart right now, but with some of the macro stuff coming, which we can kind of mention that to set us up for 2026. So first off, like the news from the other day where Trump basically carried out a capture of the Venezuelan leader and his wife. Apologies, I don't know his name, but they have been captured, and basically the U.S. companies are going to set up and take care of oil situations in Venezuela. Which, I mean, the market. It's hard to argue that like the market has looked at it positively so far.
Mhm.
The S&P and oil prices both shot up on Monday, so we're seeing S&P close above 7,000 points, I believe. Crypto obviously has, again, as we already mentioned, it's been moving up this whole year so far, including you know, during that piece of news. So there's lots of thoughts on this leading to further deflationary conditions. We've already highly anticipated a few rate cuts this year. I think this news is people are anticipating even more likely. We know that by May, we should, at least Jerome Powell will be done, and we're going to have a new Fed chair that Trump is basically installing. What else? I'm missing other things too. Oh, you mentioned the stimulus checks, which, you know, I'm with you 100%. It's like I'll believe it when I see it. But Trump, you know, has multiple times said that there will be $2,000 stimulus checks. So this is a midterm year. He was just saying the other day that like we need to win the midterms or they're going to try to impeach me or something like that. So
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it's clear. I mean, look at all the bullet points. He has been setting up for this to be the year to make people happy the whole time. Like that,
Yep.
it's completely lined up for that. It looks like that's what they're trying to do. I am confident he will probably get a stimulus check thing done just because he wants to win votes, So, yeah, I mean, all of these things kind of being ignited in 2026 while all these other people like Bob Lucas, Ben Cohen, Big Cheds on Twitter, I'm trying to think of other people, like many huge crypto influencer people or Bitcoin people are calling for, a typical bear market to start this year. So I don't know. What do you think this year looks like with those two those two things conflicting with each other? And what could the timeline look like? Like, could this look like what the Bitcoin post halving year usually looks like, where we get some crazy blow off top in Q4? Is it a situation where ETH and altcoins do well and Bitcoin chills? Like maybe Bitcoin goes back, gets to like 150K or something, and Ethereum gets to 10K or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, what do you think this could look like price and time wise?
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, we talk about the Venezuela thing, people don't understand that they have like 300 billion barrels in reserve. So that's going to be great for, the trade. Now, one of the interesting things that I had seen somebody say, that Venezuela is one of the several countries, there's a handful still out there, that do not have any kind of central banking. Part of the Rothschild central banking system. Is that the bigger play here? Well, it could be. We know we've done far greater things for some oil. So if that was the motivation behind it, there's also the voting scandal that kind of originated in Venezuela. The company that had those machines were made there. So there's a lot of weird things that are all circling around Venezuela. This is going to be an interesting thing. And yes, I have heard that the Venezuelan people are extremely happy and celebrating. So that good for them if they can get somebody that they've actually elected into office. But meanwhile, do we sit back and watch how this plays out? The oil industry there has been shut down for a while, so it will take a little bit some time to get everything rejuvenated and running again. But that could easily bring our gas prices way down. So that is something to look forward to. As far as crypto markets, man, I've been wrong everything I've thought. So I hate to speculate even what's gonna play out. Does the altcoin market finally take off as Bitcoin kind of cools off, chills out? Well, I think it's again, there's so much institutional money that's in. It's really going to depend on what they do. I believe retail's not here, so the only money that's really investing right now are the degens like us that have been here and will be here forever,
Yeah.
and the institutions, right? So, zoom out long term. Hopefully, everything still continues to go up, and this is at the worst case scenario, just a little bit longer of a play. Now, we would obviously like to see some sort of bull run this cycle, this spring, maybe early summer. I don't know. I thought it would be starting now, at least, into our altcoin season. And that just hasn't happened yet. You still have gold, you still have silver going up, just some weird things. But I really think if there are stimulus checks, that could prime the pump, because I remember exactly what happened the last time there were stimulus checks, and that was during COVID, and things just took off. That brought the retail in. That's what puts the money in the little guy's hands. And you think about it, you have all these $1,000 buys coming in. It creates a flood of liquidity and things moving, and markets getting excited again. So
Right.
I think that's pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, and you're right. I mean, like about us being here forever. We've never had anything to take profits in these last few years, and we're going to continue to be here. And yeah, I don't know. As far as time wise, I really don't know. I mean, we really are in uncharted waters right now. I mean, assuming that the Bears are not correct, if it's
Yeah.
not the typical thing this year, it's gonna look very interesting, and I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of factors that, like you just said, there's tons of more institutional money in Bitcoin than there's ever been. I mean,
Hmm.
way more manipulation than we've ever seen. I mean, like, we've talked about the, like, 9:30, 10 AM Eastern Standard Time sell-off that happens every single day as soon as the stock market opens, like,
Every
it's
well,
clear as day.
specifically every Monday. We see these nice little run-ups on the weekend, and then without fail, Monday morning rolls around and boom, everything just goes back to where it was. So,
And since November, really, like every Sunday, you would wake up and you could see they were trying to plunge it down for a red weekly close. I mean, I don't know. I know we're just talking ourselves into this maybe at this point, but it just really, really does look like there has been massive manipulation to
mhm.
keep 2025, you know, to keep the ball under the water, basically.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I just feel like that's what has been happening. And everything is lining up for something to happen in 2026. I mean, that doesn't mean it's going to. Maybe we're entirely wrong. But again, the nice thing is for us, like the Bitcoin people, if you're only ever in Bitcoin and you made the trade from 15K to 126K, congrats to you if you actually did that. Everybody else hasn't really done very well. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
crypto. So,
That reminds me of, have you ever been in a pool where you're holding an inflated ball under the water and you hold it under for so long and you finally let go? What happens when it lets go? It just shoots up out of the water. Hopefully, that's
that
what
was
happens here.
that was
That's what
my
happens here.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Have
Okay.
you ever? I thought you were gonna say, have you ever been in a pool and taking a piss and then the water like turns like a darker blue around
Oh,
you?
no, never done that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, no, me neither. I've never done that.
uh,
Maybe in a lake, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be awesome if just the exact opposite of what the Bears are thinking is what happened this year. We did see a normal time frame where Q4 of this year actually ended up being the good year, and to me it makes sense that Bitcoin. I don't want to say double tops, but makes a new high, like a somewhat significant new high. I'm not even saying like 200K, but a modest new high. And we do see I'm not going to say like repeat of 2020 or 2021 or repeat of 2017. I'm not even saying like that, but a respectable Ethereum and altcoin bull market where if you've been positioning well over the last, even modestly over the last few years, you would be set up to do pretty well. I
yep.
mean, I think that would be. I don't know. It seems likely to me, but we could be totally wrong and continue to hold the bag either way. So, yeah,
Time in the markets is better
yeah,
than timing the markets. So,
that's basically it right now. Do you have any kind of final thoughts on Bitcoin or ETH at the moment?
not at the moment. Let's see our pulse chain ecosystem here.
Let's do it. If you guys are here and enjoying the stream so far, do us a favor and peg that like button, bend it over and give it a good begging for a pegging. We appreciate you being here after a couple week layoff. So let's look at the Pulse Chain ecosystem. So a little bit of a dip right now, but it has been moving up with the rest of the market over the last week as we get into 2026. But we have Pulse basically at 4015 right now, Pulse X 4012, Inc. at 61 cents. Hex at 0027, eHex at 309068, and you don't have PDI on there, but it is at 00165 or something like that. There you go, 0016. Okay,
0016. There you
about
go.
600x to $1 for anybody wondering. But yeah, so this is where we are at over the holidays and during this ProveX sacrifice, which I think we probably could have forecasted this whenever we saw the post from Richard Hart. It ended up being deleted. They basically just asked, do you like to rip Band-Aids off quickly or, take whatever the hell it said, take your time. I don't know, whoever does that. But essentially the announcement when the and we'll get to the ProveX stuff. We're not getting into it yet, but the announcement of that sacrifice, the announcement that Pulse Chain tokens would not be accepted, we knew that that was going to create massive sell pressure, obviously, on those coins, and it did from the moment that it was announced. And that, coupled with like the very, very, very thin liquidity within this ecosystem, and with the rest of the market dipping a little bit over the holidays and stuff, we got a new all-time low for Pulse. I think like Hex would have made a new all-time low as well on Pulse Chain. Pulse X, I know, didn't get quite that low, and I don't think Incentive Token did. But yeah, so we saw a new low. I don't know what the official number would be, but basically 4012 something for Pulse. I know it got down into that range because I bought some. But yeah, so we saw that happen. I guess to you, Ewok, and we could look at the Pulse chart because we really have not done that in a while. But what do you think is most responsible for that happening? Again, the ProveX sacrifice going on. The liquidity has already purposely been made very, very thin within the ecosystem. We're seeing large whales. I mean, we could have said this for 2 years plus basically, but sell here at the bottom, paying slippage, paying a lot to sell tokens for a lot less money, which is great. I mean, you definitely do want that to be happening right now. So yeah, what do you make, I guess, of the catalyst for us getting to the new low? The whale selling you can talk about, and then we can look at the Pulse chart.
Yeah, well, the first thing I wanted to look at here was since we're right here, is this fear and greed. I don't know if you remember, but a few weeks ago we were back at like 16. It was slow. It was very, very low. And it's all the way back up to almost 50, which is, I find, very interesting. I'm still seeing a lot of negativity out there, but it's becoming fewer and far between. I think people are looking up, or we've just muted all the negative Nancy's out there, which is quite possible too. But you still have your altcoin season, the Bitcoin season still pretty strong here at 23. So this is kind of showing a weird imbalance, I think, anyway. But yeah, definitely the ProveX sacrifice, the very large whale that we all know who it is, that continues to sell
whose ex-wife it is. Whose ex-wife it is.
Oh, well, yeah, or the ex-wife. But either way, it's one of the two. But that account has been selling pretty much nonstop, daily, and trying to pull at least $50,000 out of the ecosystem on a daily basis for a while now. I think they're almost out. I think it's getting to be very, very close to them not having very much at all. I'm not big on the wallet watching. I see people posting it and just kind of remember seeing it, but there's 7 billion maybe left of Pulse X. I think I still think there's a lot of validators out there as far as Pulse goes. And that's another thing too, when there are so many validators out there, they're earning more constantly. So it's not just dumping the token. They're earning more and dumping them too. So it will be a little bit delayed, but definitely ProveX sacrifice. Let's actually go to the Pulse chart here. I'm gonna go to a different screen and because it's easier to get the charts for Pulse here, and we'll see where this actual bottom was. And it happened on New Year's Eve. Pretty much was the very low at right on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1260 was about the low that I'm seeing. 1255 it says, actually, if you look here at the low on that day. So yeah, I mean, and since then, we've had a nice little climb out. So it's been defended at least. I don't know. Was that a new all-time low?
Definitely. Yeah.
I believe it was considerably lower than Anything we've had before around what 1.5, 1.6, 1.6 ish.
That was like the spring of last year.
Yeah,
So
that was back in April, where it went down that
yeah.
low. So yeah, 1.654 was that low, and then just recently here, and I think this was all within beginning of December when the ProveX thing kind of started here. It double bottomed there, made an even lower low on, like I said, New Year's Eve was that date. So, but since then have been climbing out. Now we still are within, if you take and you draw a trend line down here of what's going on, we're still kind of under it, and I think you continue to worry until we can kind of break through this line a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, I don't even know. Probably take these ones. Yeah, that's probably about right there.
Mhm.
So until we can get into this back up to 1.7 ish and break through this trend line, uh, does it even start to look bullish again? Because I mean, it could just continue to bounce off of here and go lower. It wouldn't surprise me if we went lower. At this point, I kept thinking we would see a bounce, someone defend the price, but at this point, with the new things happening, and the sales that are continuing to happen until some of those whales are out, I unfortunately I do believe it could go lower. We could get to a point where we see 5 zeros. It'd be amazing buy opportunity, I think, but I think there is a possibility that we do crack under it a little bit.
Well, again, there is the very thin liquidity and the timing of the
Mhm.
ProveX thing, which again, I mean, it's only ending here in 2 days. So, and we'll get into the actual, guts of the ProveX stuff in a minute, but the sacrifice phase is ending here in 2 days. And then what about when the token comes out? What are we going to see then? Like the talk
Yeah.
about a potential for a new low or revisiting this low. If there's a token out, what's that going to create? Like, what will happen there? Because I'm sure there's
Well,
going to be volatility.
yeah, there's going to be volatility, and it's really going to depend on, all right, the liquidity that is provided. What's it going to be tied to, right?
Hmm.
So if people sell the ProveX token and it's tied to Pulse, does the Pulse side go up? Does it benefit from that at all? Um, that's a possibility. Now, how much selling can really happen, how much of it will be defended. It's I think it's really gonna something we have to watch is what percentage, and we'll get into all the numbers here shortly, but what percentage does the OA have? What percentage does the OA want? And how does that get played out? Do they defend that price? Do they let it go rock bottom and be organic about it, or does it get defended? Is the liquidity set up to kind of handle that and not go down like the other sacrifices have? There's a lot less out there that the general public has. So
Hmm.
that's something that we have to keep in mind. Yes, the market cap has gone up considerably, but the tokens that are actually out there, how much of that gets sold off? How much of those bonuses get taken off the top right away? And then people hold their original bag and hope that it goes lower and buy back in. So it's
Hmm.
going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this one shakes out because it is considerably different from the Pulse and Pulse X sacrifices. So
Well, looking at the ecosystem as it stands right now, Pulse X, the hexes, Inc., and everything. I mean, and you mentioned a minute ago about the OA or Richard's thoughts also about shaking out weak hands and stuff like that and letting a chart go organically where it's going to go. I mean, yeah, we talked about this a million times, but when the liquidity is not there, when the market overall is not there, it's and he's even talked about it. He talked about it on I think it was the Christmas Day stream that he did,
mhm.
or Christmas Eve or whatever it was, when he said that somebody bought a whole bunch of Paul. I think I'm confusing which occasion this is. Somebody just bought a whole
Pulse
bunch of
X.
Pulse. Yeah, a bunch of
That was
Pulse X
Pulse X that day.
Yeah, and it got sold right back down. So he's like, well, it looks like you guys are still pressing sell. So what are you going to do? So, and to me, that was like a flag saying basically that's not going to happen again anytime soon.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I it shouldn't. I don't think it should, because you
No.
want it to go organic. You know, if that's why would anybody who's going to do that waste their time, energy, and money doing that? I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, you're going to just have to let things settle in as they're going to settle in. And if people are going to cry about it on Twitter and stuff like that and can't handle it, then maybe they're not cut out for it. But why are you going to waste resources when the wind is not at your sails yet? And what I mean by that is just that the macro stuff hasn't, you know, ETH is still $3,300, or not even 31 or whatever. I mean, it's not, we're not there yet still here in January of 2026. So why waste your time, you know?
Well, keep in mind, this market doesn't have to go with ETH. It can do its own thing, but the problem is there's not enough retail to support that. To get enough new eyes over here, you have to have the other things popping off too, so that people can see. If people aren't looking at charts, if people aren't looking at crypto in general, they're definitely not going to see Pulse Chain, right? They're not going to just come across it somewhere. Not likely anyway. I mean, there's a small chance that they would, but you know, this can move on its own. But as you said, he flat out said, well, it's not ready, and that's not going to, you know, you guys are still pressing sell. So what is the point of trying to run this thing up, trying to make it, you know, something that it's not and people aren't ready for? So there's clearly more selling, and that's why I said I think this could potentially even go lower. They're just not ready. I thought the dead weight has been out for a while, but that's clearly not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want the maximum, like you said, it can pump on its own, but you want the maximum wins behind you. I mean, you want that retail there. You want everything clicking on all cylinders. And I think any ounce of energy or anything wasted prior to that point, it's just not worth doing if it's clear that nobody's interested in the price going up right now. So, you know, get that on now. Yeah. Okay. Well, good stuff with the prices as far as the ecosystem goes right now. And I am with you. I think we could certainly revisit that low, but at the same time, when you do zoom out and look at the all-time Pulse chart, I mean, you're 25% from the low right now, 20%, 15% from the low. I mean, it's, you know, I bought today, you know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit here and hold tons of, you know, USD or something waiting for that to happen, but it still could also. So I guess we'll see. Okay. Yeah. Let's move over to the ProveX stuff, since it is kind of affecting some of the prices also. And we are, again, as I mentioned earlier, only 2 days away from the close of the sacrifice phase here on January the 9th. So just to kind of backtrack and talk about when this all began, you know, Richard Hart announced that this was in the works. I don't even know when that was anymore now, probably back in November. Because it all came together pretty quickly.
Yeah,
you know,
the
name of it was Mr. Prove, but which may still be a better name. I don't know. But the original name, the logo, how he came up with that, like that all really kind of came out of nowhere. And, you know, the big catalyst, one catalyst, as we already mentioned, for prices of the ecosystem going down was that Pulse tokens basically aren't accepted for the sacrifice. So what we've seen happen is, as of just 2 days ago, this thing had only, actually, do you want to go just to can you go to the ProveX site or no right now? Can you let on load?
It's not loading on this browser.
It's not the site. You're getting blocked for some reason.
It's calling it malware for some reason. I don't understand the browser that we're on here. I can't. Okay. I can pull it up on another browser, but StreamYard is not on that browser, so it won't let me share it.
Maybe I could even just send you like a quick screenshot or something like that. But essentially,
well, I can take a screenshot.
Okay. I don't know if you.
What do you want to see? The number?
Well, yeah, I just thought it'd be good for people to see the front of the page, basically. if possible. But so essentially, yeah. So as of a couple of days ago, this thing had a total sacrificed amount of just 16 million. And that actually was in line with what a lot of educated guesses were about where this could end up, which is very, very low for a sacrifice pool for a Richard Hart project. I mean, we talked about the Pulse and Pulse X ones from years past. They were hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion for both of them. And, you know, we have seen, and I think Richard learned from it as well, that, you know, that kind of valuation is going to cause, in part, charts like we've seen for Pulse and Pulse X over the last couple of years. Now, it's not all that, but that model is definitely going to create that. You had a lot of, as we've talked about, like hex guys that were at all-time highs and had, you know, paper gains to basically throw into those sacrifices. And then you see these moves down for Pulse and Pulse X. With ProveX, in some crazy sequence of events, Richard kind of created the events where no one wanted to sacrifice for this. So, which it was awesome, kind of. So, you know, this had only raised 16 million, about 16.5 million. You have people like, oh my God, how is he doing this again? People complaining about it. Not only that, but people just don't have any money. I mean, you know, forget any opinion of it. People just don't have money to sacrifice. And then again, they also find out that, you know, there's no Pulse tokens accepted. So people just did not want to sacrifice for this thing. All this to say, it was a very low valuation as of a couple of days ago. Now we have a $340 million sacrifice total here, as it was speculated that we would see, you know, other interested wallets come in at the very end of the sacrifice phase, which we are in right now, when it is the least advantageous to sacrifice. I would not advise, I wouldn't recommend that anybody do it right now at all. I mean, you're not getting a good deal at this point, which I think is why we have seen all these other tornado cashed funds, it looks like, come into the sacrifice now here late. And a lot of people speculated this was going to happen, but I don't know if we knew it was going to be to this degree, to where we've gone from 16 million up to 340 million. And I'm wondering, first off, before we kind of look at some of the crypto solve stuff there, Ewok, like what you think about that, like how strongly you felt that these wallets would come in and sacrifice towards the end of it, and how much has been done so far, and how it compares to what happened with Pulse and Pulse X with them, those sacrifice entities coming in at the end.
Well, I mean, I called it. I said that they historically had waited until the bonuses were over, and the flat rate thing, you know, kicked in before they got in. They didn't mess with people's bonuses. That wasn't the
Right.
you know, the goal of the way they do it. That they would wait the first or second day of the flat rate, which was originally 0.75. That did get changed because of the ratio. It went to a flat 1x bonus. You know, it was a 1-to-1 bonus instead of the 0.75. So I knew that would happen on those days, which completely was expected. What I didn't realize, or I don't think the rates were near as bad as before. You know, with the Pulse and Pulse X sacrifices, I feel like the rates were a little bit better as they stepped up on the days leading up to it. You know, now you're spending about $8, $9, whatever it is, to get the same as what $1 would have before. So that's why you're seeing such a high valuation. You know, we went from 300 and I think it was 330 billion tokens at $16 million. Now we're sitting at 340 million, and it's really only gone up to 1.2 trillion. So the discrepancy on the money that was entered for the actual token increase has been surprising. Now, you know, the OA historically likes to own 85 to 90%. That puts 10% out there for you know, the rest of it. A lot of ranking sites don't like that. And that's why they won't rank Hex correctly or Pulse or anything like that, because the OA owns too much. Well, Hex staking fixed that, because those tokens, when the OA staked, they were burnt, so they no longer exist technically, and they're not out there floating around, so they can't be dumped. So that is a good thing. How will this play out? Very similar, probably. People, the outside people, are going to see this as, oh, Richard's just going to dump on your heads. Well, they haven't done it yet. The OA has not dumped tokens yet. So, we can expect to see the same, no sales, and only 10% of these on the market. So, yes, the market cap is high right now, but you can pretty much bank on 90% of those tokens never being sold. So, I feel like that's where we're at with it. I wasn't surprised at all when they came in. I was surprised how much came in. I was thinking we would end up being about 120 to 150 million total market cap, and it's doubled that. It's doubled way past that, because I didn't realize the stair stepping of how much it would take to acquire that many tokens. So my math was way off there, but again, I just didn't realize how much that it was going to take to actually acquire that much.
Right. So what do you say, I guess, to people? Because, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I was in, obviously both of you and I, full disclosure, we talked about it on here before, but we participated in the ProveX pool that Buck and Dylan from, the Fox team set up that from the beginning, where, we pulled together, and they are still the top. They're going to, I don't know how they could not have they're going to have the top multiplier when this thing is all said and done. They're the number one.
That's ranked. Over. That's locked in.
That is over. Yeah, my bad. Because it's sorted by the multiplier. So we participated in that. So we did get, the most tokens possible, basically, for our money by going into the pool. But what do you say to some of those early sackers, whether in that pool or just on their own or whatever it was, that are saying, and I'm getting this from the Telegram group that Buck had set up, where they're saying, "Oh no, it's all worthless. Like now that there's all this other money sacrificed, it dilutes what we had, and this is all a mistake. We were at $16 million market cap, now we're up to 340." You kind of just answered it a little bit there with, like, if you assume these tokens are never sold, well, who cares? But people are upset about it and thinking, see, what did I do? I made a mistake. You did it again. And I don't know. I think they're just kind of unfounded.
Well, yeah, I think they don't understand how it works, right? It's not completely market cap. Again, the market cap doesn't matter when 90% of these are never going to touch it. What also doesn't, well, what we don't know is how the liquidity will be set up. How thin will liquidity be? Will it be easy to run? Well, if it's easy to run, it's going to be easy to dump too. So that's going to be something that people really need to keep an eye on. And, how quickly are they bought up? Because I don't think there's going to be that many of these available and on the market right away. I just don't. I see the liquidity being very thin. And I see people trying to play the game, take profit right away, hope it dumps, hope they either profit or buy back in at a lower price. I think that all could happen pretty quickly. I don't see it being long and drawn out like the Pulse dump has been. There were just so many coins. This isn't the case. Again, there were only at the point of before the OA went in, I think there was a total of about 300 billion available, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. It's really not, because there are several out there that probably aren't going to sell. There are some bigger holders that I know that have some bigger investors, but it's nothing like Pulse and Pulse X. We're talking people had hundreds of billions of Pulse and Pulse X tokens because they went in with millions of dollars. That didn't happen here. So they're a lot more spread out. I think price is going to be fine. Yeah, we could see a drop in the first couple days of people selling off, the way they see it is if they put in money, they got in a 2.6 or a 2.5 after the fees are taken out, I think was what we kind of figured out. If you were one of the first couple days before it started to step up, you got about a 2.5, and you were in that pool. So, do you sell one of those, right? I mean, that leaves you with 1.5 bonus and 1 to sell. So you could take it off the top, get your original money back right away if you sold, and then hope for a dip. Probably will be some people that do that and hold the original bag of value, hoping to kind of catch a lower price. I think that will happen, but again, I think it's going to be a lot quicker. I think it's going to definitely play out a lot faster. Just not the volume of tokens. So that lower market cap is going to benefit us. Again, there's a bunch of these that are never going to see the light of day. They're going to be put into wallets and locked away probably forever. Don't forget this coin burns too. So, I think it'll all work out just fine. I think we're going to see a much faster dip though.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I mean, look, the consensus since the beginning of this has been like, oh, screw that. I'm just going to buy it when it goes down, 70, 80, 90% from launch. Now, I mean, when everybody is thinking that, I mean, this is just a total and utter inverse of the Pulse and Pulse X sacrifices.
Yeah.
So forgetting about the 340 million, it says there, we know it's 16.5 million. Like that's what was sacrificed by the public basically for this token, which is piddly squat compared to what was sacrificed for Pulse and Pulse X. So it's a total inverse. It's also different. I mean, it's something where he's now, I mean, there was definitely an effort with Pulse Chain to bring in outsiders with like the, PRC20 tokens and stuff like that. But this is a little bit of a different product where, its entire purpose is to bring people cross chain and things like that to come into the ecosystem and any ecosystem. So there is that as well. I think it's very, very different from those two models, and I guess what I would ask you is, we were talking obviously already about the Pulse Chain prices and everything, kind of getting back to that a little bit when this actually ends. I'll ask you a couple questions here. So we're 2 days away from it totally ending. I don't know if we see really in these next 2 days any kind of, you're not going to see some mass exodus from people to try to sack before this sack phase ends. I mean, I don't see that, because number one, there hasn't been this mass exodus really the entire time anyway. I mean, it has pulled prices down, but nobody has been interested in sacrificing for this in any volume for weeks now, after the first couple of weeks. So I don't think we see anything there. So I guess my first question is to you, how soon do you think a token does get launched here? I don't mean how, and then we can go into the product too, and when we think that'll be launched, but I think a token comes before a product almost certainly, based on clues that we've had, like Richard speculating it on a stream or on a video. So I guess to you, I would ask, do you think that comes first? And if so, how soon? And then a third part of that, if it comes out, let's say I'm going to say by April. I think that's a conservative estimate. I think it could be out maybe plenty of time before then. But let's say a token comes out by April. What do you think happened? I just say, what do you think happens? How do you think people within the ecosystem act? How do you think the price of Prove X goes with the model being a little bit differently, and things like that too?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to take a couple weeks. I remember they were having some, not issues, but some people that had sacrificed before Pulse X, and weren't getting credit for their points. Now they were doing something very similar, where they were doing multi-chain. There was BSC, there was Tron, there was all kind of things that were available, just like this, where you do have to credit those points and get that on chain and do the time weighted price that the sacrifice happened. So there's a lot of going back through to check them out to make sure that those points are accurate, to make sure that somebody didn't sacrifice a token that has absolutely no liquidity to sell into. Um, I think some of those are probably being filtered as we speak. Throughout the whole time, they've probably, you know, disallowed several of those. I know there were a bunch of tokens that had came in one of the very first days that didn't count. They were just some garbage tokens. So um, I think you're going to see a couple weeks. The old 2 more weeks saying. I think we'll probably see it. This will be over in 2 days. I'm hoping by at least the middle of February. I think you get a month and you should see a token. I don't think it needs to take any longer than that. Again, that'll all depend on what challenges and hurdles they come across as they're, finalizing the points. They will probably put a website out that says put your address in here, make sure that you see all your sacrifices. Now, this is going to be the difficult part for the pool, because there are so many, right? So many different transactions for Bucks pool. I think there was another pool out there as well, that was also doing some things, but that's where it gets difficult. So, we're essentially going to have to wait until the points are rewarded on the back end of it to make sure that we've gotten credit for what we put into the pool, whereas the main address is going to have to kind of be responsible to look it over and say, make sure that all your stuff is here too. So um what happens when it does launch? Well, like I said, I think you will see a immediate sell-off, of people trying to game the system, and get a much better deal. The interesting part is, will it get defended? Well, we kind of know, with just some previous statements that say, you know, people hit the sell button every time we buy, not going to pump it, not going to be exit liquidity for people. That doesn't make sense. But I think we'll see a much quicker race to a bottom. I don't think it'll be prolonged, um, unless mm, unless it goes a bunch of time without a product, and
Right.
then people get frustrated. And then you see everybody dumping it because why hold it if there's not even going to be a product, or they're frustrated. I don't see the whole 2 years later like Pulse had.
No.
I don't think that'll happen, but again, I don't know how far along it is. Like, I don't know. Um, how long it takes to get the actual product, how close they are to a release. But he's already said before that we can release the tokens right away. Might as well let them play out. And I think that's kind of what he's banking on, is to let the market sell, let it do whatever, let it find its bottom, before we even release a product. So I hope that's out by summer. I would, again, but that's totally just a guess, as I really don't know any progress. He hasn't said a word on how close it was to even being ready to launch. So I think he learned his lesson the first time.
So let me ask you this, devil's advocate, or just his actual opinion from Johnny Chaos. He says, "What good is a game token if the arcade isn't open yet?" So
Yeah.
just an argument for not putting the token out before the product. Because yeah, like you just mentioned, I mean, Pulse Chain took, it didn't launch until May of 2023, and there were no tokens obviously until that point. So yeah, what do you make about this argument?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, but so that just means they're not going to burn. Um,
Hmm.
it doesn't. I don't think it hurts to have. Essentially, it's just a meme coin at this point. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any burn mechanism. It's just a token. That's all it is, really. So yeah, what good is it? I mean, well, people will trade it. Obviously, that's about the only use case it will have, for the first however long until the arcade does open. So
I think it could be a continued tool. Kind of, I think you just speculated to this a little bit, but it could be another purposeful catalyst to maybe create a bottom of sorts, maybe within the rest of the ecosystem. I mean, I definitely think at least part of not accepting pulse tokens for the sacrifice was that. I mean,
Yeah,
I really do.
sure.
Hence that Band-Aid post that we saw. Um, and yeah, I think potentially launching the token before the product could also be for that. You know, people are going to FOMO into the token. Like, I mean, they're probably going to see a little bit of a draw. I mean, they're just like any token launch. There's going to be all kinds of wackiness and volatility on the first day. You know, when Pulse Chain launched, before anything had prices attached to it, there were crazy ratio trades that happened between Pulse and Pulse X. People
Oh
probably
yeah.
pulled their bag of this, that, or the other thing if they did it the right way.
There were people that probably lost heavily positions too because they didn't know what they were doing.
Probably
So
a lot
I'm
of that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure it worked both ways because ratio trading is not easy. And
Yeah.
you know, people just, especially with the way they fluctuated on those first couple days, man, it was very dangerous. Unless you absolutely knew exactly what you were doing. It was the wild wild west.
Yeah. Wild, Wild West. To counter off that point, and you kind of mentioned this a minute ago, but from Johnny's point as well. Yeah. How soon do you see a product? Because I agree with you 110%. We're not going to see a Pulse Chain 2.0 in terms of, okay, the SAC ended, January of 2022 for
Mhm.
Pulse X, and then Pulse Chain launches a year and a half after that. So, yeah, I think, I mean, I 100% think this year it will be out, the product. And yeah, you said like maybe by June or the summer or something.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
by
that's
midsummer at the very latest, is what I suspect. Again, we don't have any idea, so we don't know. I think again, Richard learned his lesson by giving updates on the last one, and they were wrong.
mhm,
He took a
yeah,
lot of heat for that. So, you know, I'll just go with the famous saying that software's hard, and you'll get it when you get it. So yeah, I mean, that's really all we know because I don't see him giving any kind of updates. He's learned his lesson that way by giving an estimate.
yeah.
When it's ready, we'll find out. But yeah, I do think we'll at least get the token first.
I have a feeling it's probably close to complete already. I think he probably has this where he wants it to be, and it's just a matter of time as far as releasing it. But yeah, I think this summer is as good a guess as ever. I mean, that's halfway through this year, and if we both think it's definitely happening this year, then yeah, that's probably a pretty good estimate. So, any kind of final ProveX thoughts? I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to hit as far as it goes.
Mm, no, I don't think so. We did talk about the valuation, the market cap, the all of that good stuff. Um, Again, I think it's people have to remember that 90% of these tokens are probably going to be stashed away, never to see the light of day. So
Right.
just keep that in mind, and understand that the amount that it went up, um, was considerable for all the more tokens that were actually generated, or created, so to speak. So that is a positive thing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Good stuff. For those of you that are here and enjoying the stream, do us a favor and hit the like. Brownie's Midlife Adventure. Welcome into you from down under, I believe is where you are. So welcome in. I see it is morning. So that's what I'm assuming. Let's.
Actually, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel? Because I saw this comment that was made, at one point along the way. They thought that the OA would just recycle, right? Because keep in mind, these tokens will go to an address that can be controlled by the OA. And if they wanted to, they could probably just put 10,000 ETH in, recycle it, put it back in again, put it back in again, and still get credit for the points, right? Because they control the address that it goes to. Um, do you feel that it's obviously better for a lump sum of these to come in, or to have the recycling thing happen, or does it really not matter?
So you're saying, I'm trying to clarify what you mean. Like the funds that have been sacrificed to it now. What are you
Uh,
asking as far as
well,
recycling
so
versus?
so okay, the OA could come in with 10,000 Ethereum.
Mhm.
Okay, sacrifice that, send it back out, do whatever, and
Mm.
then send it right back in. They control that address, right? Um, do you think it matters? I think optically it does. I think the outside world would see a huge recycle problem, um, because there were speculation of that happening in the AA when Hex
Yeah.
launched. That the same ETH kept going in over and over to to mitigate the prices, um, as far as what Uniswap was listed at and you were getting it at in the adoption amplifier. I personally, I'm glad that these Ethereum have come in, um, as a whole and
Yeah.
not as a recycled situation like that. And I didn't know if you had any opinion on it or thought about it, how it could have played out. But if you really wanted to piss people off, I think you could have done that whole recycling thing, and it doesn't really matter again. But
No, I am with you. Yeah, I think really it just matters optically, and I think it's much better to do it this way. Yeah, out of the two options, just because, like, do you need to add another thing on for more eyeballs to be on you or more people to bitch about something when it really
yeah,
the end result is going to be the same at the end of the day? You know what I mean? It's or not that much different anyway.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I do agree with you on that. I wanted to take a look at. So I know I sent you a ton of bookmarks, and you might have to scroll up a little bit to find this one. But this one was really interesting because Richard Hart responded to Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, who had a post the other day. I can't remember if Brian Armstrong's post was kind of just a general, here's our goals for Coinbase in 2026, or here's what we're doing. But if you could first maybe just pull up Brian Armstrong's post, and I'll kind of just quickly look at it, and then we can see Richard's response, which is interesting. We've had this debate, and Richard seemingly has kind of flip flopped on it a lot over the last few years of, are exchanges any good? Do you want Pulse on an exchange? Is it a waste of time? All these things. So Brian Armstrong the other day says, here are our top priorities for 2026 at Coinbase. Grow the everything exchange globally. I don't really know what, I guess that's some marketing moniker of theirs. I don't know. Crypto, equities, prediction markets, commodities across spot, futures, and options. 2, scale stablecoins and payments. 3, bring the world on chain through Coinbase, whatever at Coinbase Dev is, at Base Chain and Base App. We're making major investments in product quality and automation underlying each of these as well. Goal is to make Coinbase the #1 financial app in the world. So responding to that, Richard said, since you're listing everything, which, I mean, yeah, you look at some of the token listings on Coinbase, it's pretty
Yeah.
goddamn bad. Give Pulse Chain a shot. It has flawless operation for a few years. I wouldn't bother you, but since it's actually decentralized, there's no fancy entity to fill out your forms. Oh, I see what he's saying. You can't really fill it out since it's decentralized. So this is interesting because people would be quick to call out Richard and say, "Hey, didn't you say exchanges were shit and you don't need them and exchange listings don't matter?" We've seen bootlegged, really awesome efforts within our community from like Crypto Coffee, and I know that Panos was kind of involved in the MEXC listing, I believe it
Hmm.
was, and how that went up and down, and it was about them not having the liquidity to do it, and people thought we were ripped off by them, and just all these back and forths. And it's like, what's the final answer? Is an exchange listing a good or a bad thing? Well, I mean, Richard within the last 2 years definitely has said, like, I don't see what the big deal is about exchange listings. Exchanges aren't any good. And now he's talking to Brian Armstrong, asking him to list Pulse Chain. So, yeah, I'm curious on this. Are we seeing yet another philosophy change here? Is it just the sign of the times that this market hasn't gone the way that Richard and pretty much everybody else thought that it would go? Richard's also taken on this reply guy life lately too, although this seems more like a straightforward response to Brian Armstrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? Because this has gone back and forth so many times.
Well, we've talked about it many times, and what Hex did without an exchange listing. It is possible, right? It is possible to do a 10,000x without being listed on a major centralized exchange. However, if you want eyes on your stuff, you've got to put it out there. You've got to make it available in as many places as you can. Now, here's the cool thing. Coinbase lists it, and if they do get fees, make money, things like that on it, the other ones will pick it up. You know, the problem is giving them liquidity to use and to work with. You know, it's part of the game. It's part of the game, and trying to get these guys. And Richard has always said before, screw them. They'll have to buy it like everybody else. Well, the problem is there's no demand right now, right? He was thinking that prices would be somewhere else probably by now, and they would want to list it. They would want to get a piece of it, and they would have to buy their own in order to place liquidity on their exchange. But it hasn't worked out that way. So where do you where do you rank it now, right? You always think, when you look back, Bitcoin was invented to get rid of the middlemen. Well, now they've injected a whole bunch of middlemen, and now it's $100,000 each, right? So is it the price you have to pay? Well, maybe it is. I don't see the DEXs becoming a way of the future quite yet. I just don't think people are ready for it, unfortunately. So, you've got to do the things you can to get the eyes on it. Coinbase is one of the most well-known exchanges out there. You got Coinbase, you got Binance. Those two probably, with you got Kraken and a few others that are pretty decent side. Crypto.com. I would say there's 4 or 5 out there that hold the market share pretty much by themselves. So if you're going to do anything and get noticed, you might as well suggest it on the biggest one out there, and which I think Coinbase probably is, and see what happens. That's all you can really do, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Johnny said here, now you just said about, people not using DEXs and stuff, but Johnny said centralized exchanges are going to go extinct because newer direct methods will become more popular. New alternatives are emerging. I mean, I definitely think he's right about that, because that doesn't just mean DEXs. I mean, we're seeing it with a lot of these other platforms now where you do not have to have an exchange and you can go right on kind of a, like a Liberty Swap, for example, is kind of a hybrid exchange / DEX. Now, I mean, to get to Liberty Swap, though, you still need to get on an exchange first.
Yes,
you
do.
But what is it like? There's a lot, like he said, there's a lot emerging now, like Change Now. There's other ones out there that I'm definitely missing, but where you can just onboard with a credit card or whatever it is. And yeah, they're going to continue to pop up. I mean, we have Prove X coming. I don't know what the onboarding will look like for that, but there's so many different things popping up to be able to get you into crypto without having to do all the KYC and all the exact things that these centralized exchanges do,
Yep. Well, even things like Cash App, right? You can go on Cash App and just buy Bitcoin. Like it's connected right to your bank. Boom, press a button, buy Bitcoin. It's in your wallet right away, essentially. And then you can send it out. That's possible. So I do think there will be methods that come up like that, very similar. And I think that something like that would do Pulse Chain wonders. It's just a lot of development. It's a lot of backing. It's a lot of somebody holding a bunch of liquidity in order to do that. But I still think do you have to KYC with Cash App? I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I yeah, if I were guessing, I would think you have to. Yeah,
mm,
not
yep,
100%, but I would think you have to.
yeah. But either way, like you said, it's just not here yet. It's coming, and we can make things work, but it will be here soon enough. Like I said, we've said this before that Richard is usually quite a few steps ahead of the rest of the market, and it does take things a while to catch on to realize that. Oh wow, that the way you set your websites up, that was actually pretty smart because now nobody can mess with them. So
Yeah.
um, things like that, they take a while to play out, and he is a very forward thinker, and unfortunately that means getting to the party before people really show up.
Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, well, it is interesting to see RH going back on this, but this is what I think is good about him. Like it's the same thing with politicians. Like so many people will say, like, "Well, he's a flip flopper. This guy, he changed his stance on this." It's like, yeah, isn't that a good thing? Isn't it good that you intook more information or adapted to market conditions or adapted to whatever conditions and said, you know what? I may have been wrong about this before, or maybe I was right about it at that time, but now surveying the landscape now, this is what I think. I
Yeah.
mean, we saw a launch of like pump tires. Do you think that's something that you ever would have thought, Richard Hart would have been behind or anything? So, yeah, I think it's just adapting to where you're at, and that's what's great about him. And he talked about it in one of his recent streams. Like he's going to persist no matter what. And this doesn't work, you try this. This doesn't work, you try this. Continuously.
Mhm. Yep, he's very good at pivoting. Like, sees that something doesn't work, you have to pivot. You have to. Sending all those tablets out, he realized that it was taking way too long, and he had to pivot. There was something that had to be done. No whether he's behind it or whether the foundation is behind it, who knows? We have an idea that they all came from somewhere, but again, you have to know how to pivot, and when something's not working, try something different. Keep trying. He says that all the time. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying different shit till something works.
Yeah.
So I'm,
Yep.
thankful for that at least.
Definitely. So we'll see what does emerge with the Coinbase stuff eventually, anyway. But I think
Yeah.
we should wrap up with this. We'd probably be remiss if we didn't mention that the Hex Conference 6th annual is going on right now, simultaneous to us being on the air. So maybe some people are over there, but it started last night, the 6th, and it runs through the 9th, which conveniently is also when the ProveX sacrifice phase is ending. I don't know if you saw this about the Hex Conference Ewok, but I did see, and no clue if it's just. I, I, I'm going to guess it's not official, and it's hopeful. But I saw on the schedule at the end of the final day, it says like keynote speaker and RH video question mark or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, or if it's just hopeful, which is what my guess is for
Yeah.
sure. But beside that point, what do you make of this being 6 years in the making? 6 years of Hex, the fact that this conference still exists, there's not really anything like this throughout the rest of crypto. I mean, yeah, there might be Bitcoin and Ethereum has their little shindig and stuff like that, but we know this community and the fervent community that it is, and the continuing to put out several conferences now per year. I mean,
Right.
I think we've got everything from a Hex conference to a PDI conference to a ProveX conference now. Maybe there'll be an Inc conference. I see Fast Abdul in the chat. He can start that. But yeah, it's amazing just that it's still going on. The fact that there's so much outreach. I watched Sami lead it off last night, and then a little bit of Tam Tam. And I wasn't familiar with that guy that was on with her, but he did a very good job too. Yeah, it's just awesome that it's still going on,
Yep.
and good that Maddie is still putting on. I mean, people have had thoughts about Maddie. Maddie, I think, had probably been turned off by a lot of stuff and not wanting to do it for a certain amount of time, and here he is, kind of commissioning it again, and all these people are showing up. So just speak to the fact that hey, it's still going on. This
Yep.
community is still here, and whether you think RH actually does show up.
Well, so here's the thing. I think Maddie has always kind of done that and saved a spot. I think one of the very first years he was live and he saved that spot for Richard, as the keynote speaker on the final day. My guess is that he reached out and said, "Hey, Richard, would you like to record a video for us? I'm going to save a spot for you. I'll play it at the end. If you'd like, if you want to show up live, that'd be great too. But I don't see that happening.
Right.
But I do believe that he just kind of bookmarked it for him. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then they probably have some sort of community time set aside where people kind of just come in and chill and chat. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't, he's been a little bit more active with making videos. Said that it would probably be a more of a recurring thing from him. He kind of led us down that path, at least to say that he's not opposed to doing these. So um, we may get one. Who knows? I don't want to speculate or guess on it, but um, it would be nice to see something like that from him. But again, if not, we just had one here for Christmas, and he gave us a lot of information, and yeah. So, but no, it is good to see that it still exists. I don't know if you saw or not, but Bitcoin just turned what 17
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
January 3rd or 4th or something like that. So,
Crazy.
17 years of crypto and you know 6 years of hex. It's crazy that time really flies when you look back on it. And people say staking for 15 years is so long. Hell, we're a third of the way, over a third of the way, on an initial 555 or 5 already. So yeah, it's it'll be here before you know it. I really think so.
Yeah.
If you still haven't thrown a punted a Quattro Cinco steak out there, it may be worthwhile to do it. It helps you not really worry about the price as much when you've got things into the future and you can't sell it anyway. Um, that's how I look at it. I make a brand new one every month. I still keep putting them out there. So just just
Put it
saying,
out. Yeah.
pun it out.
Yep. I mean, yeah. I mean, we've already waited 5 years. Why not wait another 10 more and earn
Yeah,
some yield, earn some yield along the way? And it's not like it has to be a large portion of anything that you hold. I mean, it can be a
sure.
something you kind of experiment with or do it with a very small portion of your overall portfolio. But yeah, just great that we do still have the Hex conference going on. Obviously, again, all these conferences year in and year out. That's the thing. I mean, it's always been that with this community is that the community is there. It is so fervent. And once things start to get going with, to bring us full circle to the beginning of the show, once things get to better macro conditions, which it looks like we're seeing here, if you ignore all that and just say that a random 4-year cycle is what matters and everything's going down, then okay. But eventually there's going to be more liquidity and people need to be able to live their lives a little bit again. And people have been hurting really badly for the last few years. And looks like that's what Trump and America are trying to deliver here anyway, that should have ripple effects to the rest of the world as well. And it's not even just the US. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen across the world, really, in 2026. And we'll just have to see how that kind of cascades down again to bring it all full circle. So, yeah, awesome stuff. I'll probably watch some of the Hex conference whenever we get off the air tonight. But
Yep.
anything that you want to wrap up with tonight, Ewok? Any final words?
Yeah, there was one thing that I had come across, and I'm gonna share that real quick. And why Prove X could actually should have brought it up then. But I don't know if you noticed it came across this or not, but blockchain chick Heidi had posted something about as of January 1st, the DAC 8 law went live in the European Union. Basically, this removes everyone's privacy. And the tax authorities now have an automated dashboard tracking your digital assets. Tax year has already begun. So, you know, this is pretty huge. Maybe we can continue to talk about this next time a little bit, but this could be a foreshadowing of why Prove X could be very, very important. So if you haven't heard about this, and I know we have a lot of European folks in our community, so if you didn't hear about this, you may want to look into it. But there's some privacy issues that are taking place in Europe, and it's not good. So
yeah,
could be very, very beneficial to the ProveX thing. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up real quick before we ended. But
Europe's usually on the front end of those things. So interesting to see that. And that fight is going to continue. And I think that, it's another reason these products are good. And there's a continued fight for privacy within crypto for sure.
absolutely.
So great stuff. Well, hey, we appreciate everybody in the chat tonight. NJ Dub, of course, Fast Abdul just joining us here late. Johnny Chaos. We had Philly. All the normals were here. We had, I've seen Ricky Ricardo films, but welcome to you, Desi Arnaz. Brownie's Midlife Adventure. We've got Fishcracker, Valiant Low-Key Destroyer. Dejin Moonboy was here earlier, and a whole bunch more. So we really appreciate all of you guys. Checks my pulse as well. We do this pretty much every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be back again next week. The ProveX Shack will be over by then. The Hex Conference will be over. What will 2026 begin to take shape like? We're going to get more and more info every single day. We'll be here to talk about it next week. So for Crypto Ewok, this has been Broke Boy Crypto right here on the Creed of Crypto. We'll see you guys.
See ya.